everybody, and welcome to Energetic Principles Report for the full moon in Aries. My name is Melissa LaFara, and I am an astrologer and tarot reader from San Diego, California. And in today's episode, I'm going to be discussing the full moon in Aries, the Sabian symbol assigned for that degree, and also what the tarot has to say about it. So let's get started.
And may the stars be with you.
All right, everybody, let's talk about this full moon in Aries. So some exacts here. It is going to be exact on Thursday, October 5th at 11:40 a.m. Pacific time, which is 6:40 p.m. Universal time, and Friday, October 6th at 4:40 a.m. Aussie Eastern time. And that's going to happen at 12 degrees Aries. So what does this full moon mean? Well, just a little background history on this full moon and this type of time of year. This full moon is known as the harvest moon. And what that means is it's actually was given that name around being the farmer's moon. Back in the day when the farmers would welcome this moon because it'd give them a little bit of extra light to reap their harvest with at this time of year. And so what we know about this moon is that it actually, it looks bigger in the sky, and it looks brighter and oranger, and it has kind of that reddish, yellowish hue to it. So I just wanted to talk briefly about why that is. And so for us in the northern hemisphere, why this is called the harvest moon. And so, basically, because we are near these equinoxes and this equal day and equal light, since we've moved into Libra season, the moon is actually rising on the horizon earlier than it normally does. Normally it takes about 50 minutes to do so, but now at this time of year, it takes about 35 minutes for it to rise above the horizon. And so when it gets to the horizon, it just has... because it's reaching there sooner and we have more light that's going on, it just appears to be bigger, which is known as the moon illusion, but also gets that reddish hint. And why that is because when we look at our atmosphere and we look into the sky, the atmosphere scatters, and so we see this blue light, and that's why the sky is blue. But when we look at a horizon, the atmosphere is actually thicker, and why we see the sunsets we do, or why this full moon looks orange or yellow, has that reddish hue, is because that thicker atmosphere that's on the horizon scatters light so effectively, and why we get that bright blue when it's not, at the end of the day, that when those red tones come up from the sunset, it helps filter those red lights through. And so that's what's giving this moon that kind of reddish glow. And so the combination of the moon rising earlier and the fact that the atmosphere is thicker and scatters light more effectively and allows those red hues to come in, that's what makes this moon bigger, brighter, and redder than most. And also what allowed the farmers to continue on with their harvesting, because they had more light in the day. Even though the sun had set, the moon, this big bright moon, was there to help guide them through the fields. So just a little bit of history, and sorry if I botched some of it here and there, but I think you get the picture. So that being said, what does this mean for the full moon? Well, the full moon, let's get a reminder of what a full moon is. And that is, we all know it's when, when the sky is got the big old moon and it's as bright as we could possibly see. And that's exactly the point, is the moon has now apexed from its new moon position, to where we weren't seeing anything at all, to this full moon position where we see everything. And that's precisely it. The full moon is more visible. And it's not just more visible for the moon, it's more visible for the public and what's going on. And that's why things are amped up during the full moon, and everything is made that much more visible and lively in a sense. But it's also a time, because it's reached its brightest capacity, that we begin to release certain things during the full moon. So we have a polarity essentially that is apexed to this point, that is now time to release. It has culminated as much as it's going to culminate, and now it's time for release. And so here we are in the polarity axis of Aries and Libra, because the sun is currently in Libra, and we're having this full moon at 12 degrees Aries. And so that's a polarity between me versus you, versus giving and receiving, courageous action versus maybe a little indecision that doesn't allow us to make certain choices. And so we're going to find ourselves during this full moon. It's going to be a time to really step into our own courage around where we're going in life, because this full moon is basically picking up on that Jupiter-Uranus opposition that we just had last week. And so all of our lives are changing right now. And I feel that this full moon is really going to put another kind of a trigger effect on the choices that we have been making to move our lives forward. And, you know, the energy that has basically been pivoting in order for us to basically go down these new directions. And so this Aries full moon is here to be like, okay, I'm going to give you the power to essentially, summon your courage and do what it takes and what is necessary to get things done and to take courageous action. Now, of course, there is always courageous action could not so much benefit other people, and that's where we get this Libra polarity. So we're trying to find a way that we can be, our own selves, stand tall with who we are, take action and make decisions based on what we want personally, but also be able to do that with the diplomacy of Libra and realize that there's other people in our lives and how can we bring them along for this and how can we benefit each other. So these types of things are going to be on the radar during this full moon in Aries. And it's interesting that on the full moon, my podcast partner, Shauna McGrath, and I, we're going to go live for the first time on Facebook on our Feminine Principle podcast page on Facebook. So we're going to be going live during the full moon on October 5th at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So if you want to come on down and join us in full moon celebrations, we will be there. And once again, that is Feminine Principle Podcast, at Feminine Principle Podcast on Facebook. So like I said, it's the perfect time to go live and be visible as, the energy is that much more apparent in the public eye. So we'd love for you to join us. But let's get back to what is going on with this full moon. And the fact is that not only do we have this polarity going on, but the two full moon, the rulers of the full moon and the sun, Mars and Venus respectively, are actually in conjunction in Virgo on the same day as the full moon. So our masculine and our feminine sides are coming together, and we really can act on things that we want to open up to and receive in life, and to bring more abundance and to bring more joy. And we're actively making changes in our day-to-day reality to be able to do these things. So there's so much energy on this day between the fact that it's a full moon, we have a Mars-Venus conjunction in an Earth sign that's really ready to make moves on this physical plane and to set things in motion here on this Earth. Not all conceptualized ideas, actually what can I do to make ground on ground? And we have Saturn, who is in Sagittarius, that is loosely squaring that energy. So there is an element of, discipline needed there, and to rally our big picture into these boundaries. And so I really think of this full moon as a pivotal point that is culminating with all the energy that we've had in the last couple weeks to really get us set on the right track for all the moves that we've been making. Because like I said earlier, change is here, and it's time to maybe quote unquote put on our big girl or big boy panties and get to work and be courageous and take action in our life where we need to, and not to shirk action. And I just read an article the other day from the president of the society that I belong to, the Astrological Society, April Elliott Kent. She had a wonderful article on this Aries full moon, and she talks about the need to, especially in light of, you know, the shootings that just happened the other day, the need to really be courageous and speak out on how we feel about certain things, and when things are wrong, and there needs to be a champion for people that are in a lesser position, or just, you know, we can't basically just roll over and die in the face of adversity or crisis, is essentially what she's saying. And it's way more beneficial to speak your piece and state what it is you have to state, and to take an active stance on certain things, because that's what makes us individuals, and that's what then in turn helps the collective, because like she was saying, you know, Uranus is about to go into Taurus, and you know, if you give up and you don't speak your piece and you don't stand tall in like kind of that Aries energy, that leaves a gap for people that do hold that to come in and take power. And so I highly recommend reading that article, and you can find that on BigSkyAstrology.com, I believe. So that is kind of the energy in the air that's going on right now, and we're basically in this polarity of Aries and Libra. So how can we find that courage to speak our piece and to take action in areas of our life that really need action to be taken, and to make those decisions that we know may be hard, but we have to do them nonetheless. And so I really think that this full moon is essentially energized around those polarities. All right, so let's talk about the Sabian symbol assigned to this degree. So if you watch my previous videos, you know that we take the degree and the minutes. So we have 12 degrees and some minutes. I'm not sure what those are right now. And we're gonna round those up. And so we're gonna get 13 degrees Aries. And so what we have, what Dane Rudyard says about 13 degrees Aries is we have an unexploded bomb reveals an unsuccessful social protest. And so the key word for this degree is an immature evaluation of the possibility of transforming the status quo. So what does that mean? Well, you know, we can probably break down some literals in that. You know, an unexploded bomb reveals an unsuccessful social protest. You know, it's essentially that power that kind of goes off on its own whim, and it's so powerful, it's so ego-driven and egocentric that it actually backfires or doesn't fire at all, and you're left looking at something that just was completely ineffective because it wasn't you know, it wasn't fully developed yet. The key word for this degree is adolescent frustration. And we've all been there. We've all been adolescents, and we all know that feeling of frustration. But if we put this kind of on a more of a worldly perspective, that does give us some right to be very interested in what might happen during this full moon, as these are cardinal points, and these are action-driven points, and it's that type of outward, what they call masculine energy, and it's not, you know, necessarily just male. It's the fact that it's outward, it's moving, it's pushing, it's aggressive. It takes charge, it takes action. And so we have a full moon in these cardinal points. We're going to get stuff like this. We're going to get people that kind of fly off the handle, or try to take matters into their own hand, and try to basically, you know, resolve violence, and try to equal out everything, but they're unable to do so because it's coming from a place of ego-driven power anyways, and frustrated with the status quo and what is, but they can't make any moves in that matter just because, you know, the spiritual ideal and the earthly realm are not balanced. Because the truth is, you know, on Earth there's going to be conflict, and there is going to be inequality here and there, and there's never going to be that, you know, speaking as an idealist, I'd love for there to be that perfect utopia where we find that balance. But the reality is that this symbol is saying, you know, that over idealistic, you know, desire for that peace and harmony is kind of what the problem is, and that's where the immaturity comes in, and the refusal to conform to certain things, and are always making those bombs that are like they may or may not go off, and they'll probably cause more harm than good. And you know, we see that all over the world, and you know, terrorist factions and stuff. But in this particular degree, it's telling you to just be aware that you don't fly off the handle, the ego handle, and try to mix that with issues of justice, because chances are that premature expression is essentially going to backfire, because it's that adolescent that's frustrated. And so if there's a takeaway from this, I see it kind of more of on a global level of how maybe this can come into play, especially with so much that's going on right now. But internally, you know, you might want to find that balance between balance, like knowing where you can find balance, and knowing that sometimes things aren't going to be peaceful and harmonious, and you can't use all your action to try to get that to be so, and you have to take action to have that peace as well. So it's really tempering the ideals that we all have, and you know, that spiritual ideal versus that mundane reality. And the thing is that it just can't all be peace right now, and so we have to find the balance within that. All right, so let's see what the tarot has to say about this full moon in Aries. All right, so it looks like we have the moon as our focus and the sun or Knight of Wands as our grounding. So what does this mean? Well, you know, it's interesting to be at the moon for the full moon. I would think in all these videos that I've done that I would have gotten the moon sooner, but this is the one that gets the moon. And so, you know, some questions you might want to ask yourself is, you know, is fear of putting your ideas into action, is that something that's going on? You know, is there indecision that is causing, you know, fear, or preventing, you know, actively putting things into your, you know, into place, into your ideas, into action? These are the types of things I would ask, because the moon essentially represents an area in our lives that is kind of motivated from fear, or from a dark place, or a place we don't understand, or kind of that unconscious zone. And that's where imagination lives, and that's where, you know, creation lives essentially. But because that veil is there, a lot of times it can be associated with fear and the dark, and what it is that kind of lurks within us, that needs to have a light shone on it, in a sense. So, you know, especially with the Son of Wands, because the Son of Wands is a you know, a boisterous character that's ambitious, adventurous, loves to have fun, loves to work at their, you know, what their plans and their goals and what they have in place, and is ready to take action, and is all about their ideas and getting it out there and being like, I'm passionate about this, and I'm going to make moves in this area and that. And, you know, here we have the moon that's saying, you know, you might be a little fearful. You might be a little bit hesitant. You might rush into things in a state that is not as clear as you would like it to be. And so things such as self-doubt and anxiety could come up when we have the moon card here. So I would, you know, ask myself if there needs to be some balance around, you know, my own doubt and my own anxiety, and you know, how can I take my confidence levels? Because here we have Aries. Aries is done right, is very confident and courageous, and willing to step out and be the first to try something and just go out and do it, right? And so I think there's an element of that here, of like that fear, or that self-doubt, or that anxiety holding you back, or holding any of us back from really putting our goals into place and taking action and just moving forward with what it is that we see spiritually for ourselves and in our vision. You know, we've had this Jupiter-Uranus opposition. We're all making these changes. And so now is the time to really trust our instincts. Because that's the thing about the moon too, is it's about your own instinctual knowings and sensings. And so now is a really time to tap into that instinct and be able to trust it and then take action based on that instinct and not stay in this indecisive place around where am I going? What am I doing? Oh my God, if I make a move, is it going to, you know, your emotions are all lit up. That's what we basically have to deal with during this full moon, especially since it's a full moon and those emotions are going to be lit up. So how can we dispel that fear? How can we dispel that anxiety and that self-doubt and really trust our instinct to make and take the actions that we need to get us in a better place and more aligned with our goals? All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you stopping by. And if you like what you see here today, please share it with other people that you think might want to know this information, because the best thing you could do for me would be to spread the good word and share it with others. And if you want to find out where I live and where I hang out, you can find me at energeticprinciples.com. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at Energetic Principles. And once again, I do that podcast with Shauna McGrath and Neo-Feminine Astrology, and that is called The Feminine Principle, Astrology for Authentic Living. And like I said, for this full moon, we are going to be going live on Facebook on a Facebook Live event where you can find out more about each of us, and we're going to open it up to a live Q&A so that you can talk full moon with us on the spot while it's happening. So come on down, and that Facebook is at Feminine Principle Podcast, or it's called The Feminine Principle, Astrology for Authentic Living. So that being said, you know, I wish everybody a happy full moon, you know, full moon blessings. And I hope that everybody, is able to step into that you know, Aryan courageousness, that is really presented by this full moon. Wishing you all blessings, and if you want to find out more from me, please subscribe to my channel, because I'm always here with this moon talk. So until next time, may the stars be with you.